Alright, in this lesson we're going to work on just refining the girl's hair, adding those last few little details. And I'm going to start with titanium white. Titanium white, mix a little matte medium into it to make it fluid. And I'm going to add a little bit of Indian yellow and some burnt sienna. And then let's add a little bit of pyro red orange. And basically what we want to do is just add a few little wispy spots. Now, the way I'd like you to think of mixing color, instead of trying to get just the perfect color to match a certain area, if you don't hit that color as you're mixing, then find a spot where it'll work. You know, I'm looking at this and I say, I think this is going to be too light for right here, but maybe it'll work over on the other side. And actually, as I look at it, it needs to get more chromatically intense. So I added a little more Indian yellow. Since we're going semi-opaque here, we're adding titanium white. You're going to have to use primarily, Indian yellow with the titanium white, pyro red orange, just a little bit of burnt sienna, but it has to be more chromatically intense because of that titanium white. Otherwise, it's not going to have the right luminosity as we add it. So what I'm going to do is just add a few little streaks on the top. And I have to be careful as I add this lighter color to an area that's much darker in value. It's going to get muddy really fast. So I have to have a foundational color to work into it. I just took some burnt sienna. I'm going to take a little more pyro red orange, a little more Indian yellow, maybe a bit of raw sienna just so it's not too chromatically intense. And we just mix that together. You can see I have an area on the palette that's darker down here, a little lighter on top. I'm getting something in between. And I'm going to get more of a foundational color below. And the titanium white gives it enough opacity that it should be able to cover some of the darker areas. So here I'm basically just refining some of the value differences on the top here a little more. Now I'm going to add a little more burnt sienna. So as I look at my painting, I discern that it's a little darker in value, a little less chromatically intense on the shadow here. So I'm just adding a color that'll work for that. And I'm using my finger to kind of dab it and blend out of it. Now, there's a couple of little hairs I can add, and you don't have to add every hair you see in the picture. If I want to add just a little hair right here that curls in, I can do that. And let's zoom in so you can see that a little better. So again, there's just a little hair that curls out, and I'm just using a very small brush. This is a size 0, so it's a very small brush, but you could get smaller. You could use a 10-aught or even a 5-aught, but this is a size 0. I have it to a nice point. And I'm just barely grazing the surface using short, choppy strokes to really control the direction of this strand of hair. And so I can see it's not a complete, and I don't want to make just a little U-shape. I want to really observe the photo. I can see rather than being just like a cup handle shape, it actually has more of an L to it, a rounded L. And I want to capture that nuance. So this is the first step in doing that. Now after that dries, it won't take long to dry, I'll come back on top and add just a little highlight in the middle, and that'll really make it come alive. Now I can do some other little strands like this here, there, and everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but just in a few different spots. And add more matte medium to your mixture, and that'll make the paint that you're applying more fluid and more translucent. It'll be easier to really get the nuance that you're looking for. And this is how you really get those nice nuances in your paintings. And you can make hair that looks like hair and doesn't look like, I don't know, wires sticking out of somebody's head. So we just really want to get a few little strands in different directions. I'm looking at my reference photo and trying to follow what I see as much as possible. It doesn't have to be exactly like the reference photo, but close. And here there's a few little wispy hairs. Now I'm probably going below my camera line, so I'll have to change that. Let's add this little lock up on top that flows up out of the parted hair. That's a pretty prominent little strand of hair coming out, and we don't want to neglect that. Let's see, I want to make sure I get the angle correct. And I'm just pulling for my mixture. Within this area I have a lot of different colors. Let me see if I can get this position so you can see. Here it is. A lot of different colors. Here, now you can see the colors better. We have a darker, darker on the bottom, a little lighter on the top, a little more red on this side, you know, pyro red orange. Here it's a little less chromatically intense. Let's use my brush pointed out to you. So here a little less chromatically intense, here a little more chromatically intense. There it's a little lighter, it's got more of the yellow. So I'm picking from these different areas based on what I see, kind of matching up by eye on my painting, and then using that appropriate area. So I would suggest that you have those little nuances floating around at the end on your palette as well, where you can really pull from a lot of different areas to get the right color you want. So again, let's add that little lock of hair. I just wipe this off if I don't like it and keep going. And I'm using, again, short choppy strokes with a light amount of pressure. I have my hand firmly rested on the canvas, and that gives me a lot of dexterity. That's the beauty of painting with acrylic, is that you don't have to use a maul stick, you don't have to hold your hands, you know, like you see some people doing like that. Because everything's dry, you can rest your hand on it and you can get a great deal of precision. I know oil painters still have ways of overcoming it, but at least we don't have to do that as acrylic painters. We don't have to use maul sticks and different ways to steady our hands and get detail. We can just rest our hands right on the canvas. And there's a little strand that just pops up above that. So after that dries, I can come in and actually add a little highlight on top of that. Now, remember this strand over here? Let's add that highlight right now and see what happens. I don't know if I have the right color on my brush. Nope, it has to get a little darker. So I'm going to pull from this a little bit of a darker mixture below. Not from this up here on top, but down here. And I'm going to try that, see if it works. If it doesn't work, then I'll grab something else. But it looks like it works. It looks like it's blending in pretty nice, and I added that highlight just in the middle of that little strand of hair. It's maybe about, I don't know, three strands of hair together. Some of them are just one strand, but they catch the light in such a way you can still see them. Let's move the camera down. Actually, I tell you what, let's break this up into another video, and then we'll work on the lower half of her hair. I'll see you there.